The Carolina Hurricanes have won their last 3 games with 2 in a back-to-back road trip. Now they're home against the Columbus Blue Jackets as they look to even up the season series.
Your Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the Everydayer for making this your first listen of the day. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about, sure, Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I'm the Credentials Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hawkers, also the Charlotte Checkers beat writer at the Calder Times, also the co-host of the Searchcast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. Got a great Thursday show for you guys as we get to preview the last regular season matchup between the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Carolina Hurricanes. What are going to be the keys to the game for the Hurricanes to get their 4th straight win? And then later on the show, I got Matthew Zator from the Hockey Writers joining me today as we get to talk about the rumors that has been circulating around the Vancouver Canucks with JT Miller and Elias Pettersson, and where do the Hurricanes stack up in all those conversations? But before we jump into all of that today, today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Now, like I said, the Hurricanes are back home after their 2-game road trip to play the Blue Jackets for the last time this season. This game will be on FanDuel Sports Network Ohio and in FanDuel Sports Network South. Now, the season series is led 2-1 by the Blue Jackets when they won 5-4 at home for the first time this season back in November. And then the Hurricanes followed up with their own win in December on the 15th, 4-1, and then lost to Columbus back in Columbus once again, 4-3. Both those games in Columbus, as we all know, both went to the shootout, and unfortunately, the Hurricanes lost in both of those games. So the Thursday game, last game of the season, showdown between the two sides. Hopefully Carolina gets the win because right now it seems like the home team has won every game. So hopefully that trend stays. The Hurricanes beat the Blue Jackets, even up the season series, and get their 30th win of the year. Game is set for 7 o'clock Eastern. Columbus 23-18-7 after just beating the Toronto Maple Leafs on Wednesday nights. They are on a second half of a back-to-back. And the Hurricanes are 29-16-3. Now, looking at the players to watch over the last 5 games, in terms of points, Martin Necas with 5, 4 of those being assists, and then Adam Fantilli with 5 points actually, but does have 4 goals, and he scored a hat trick for the first time in his career against Toronto on Wednesday night. In terms of assists, for them, it's Kirill Marchenko with 4. And for the Hurricanes, in terms of goals, that is Seth Jarvis. Now, looking to tell the tape, as we all know, things could definitely change when the actual game comes, but where are the teams actually seeing when the games, throughout the season? In terms of the power play, the Blue Jackets actually have the 10th best power play in the NHL with 23.1, and then their penalty kill is 74.8, which is 26. Now, on the flip side, Carolina is still, unfortunately, still falling down the ladder in terms of their power play, which is now 17th in the AHL at 20.9, was top 5 at one point. I think they're one of the last 33 or one of 31. So right now it's a little bit of a bleeding factor when it comes to the power play not really sticking together. But the penalty kill is still second overall in the AHL with an 85.2. Of course, the Hurricanes faced the number 1 penalty kill team. And it showed because, unfortunately, for their own power play, they went 0 for 3. In terms of the face-offs, Carolina 52.7, which is 4th in the NHL compared to the Jackets 47.4, which puts them in 28th. Now, this, I think, is where it's going to be very telling of how this game is going to go. The Blue Jackets and their goals for per game, 3.29, which is 5th, and also is tied with Carolina, who's also averaging 3.29. So you have 2 teams that are averaging the same amount of goals for per game, and they're both tied for 5th in the NHL. Now, goals allowed, the Blue Jackets have given up 3.29 goals per game. So they're basically matching what they've scored versus what they've given up. And that puts them 26 in the NHL. while Carolina only gives it 2.73 goals allowed per game, and that puts them 6th in the NHL. Now, when looking over the last 10 games, both teams have been playing very good over the last 10. The Blue Jackets 7-2-1, and that's when they actually had a 6-game winning streak that saw them beat St. Louis twice, Pittsburgh, Seattle, Philadelphia, and the San Jose Sharks. Now, they did have to play the Rangers and the Islanders, lost in a shootout to the Rangers, lost outright to the Islanders, but then, of course, on Wednesday night, beat the Toronto Maple Leafs. So got them back in the win column, stopped that 2-game losing streak, and then, puts them in a good spot to see where they are come playoff time as they fight for a wild card. Now, for the Carolina Hurricanes, they're 6-3-1, which includes their current 3-game winning streak. They saw them beat Vegas to sweep them in the regular season, beat Chicago in overtime in the first half of the back-to-back, and then sweep Dallas in the regular season series and getting their second straight, win in that back-to-back 3 in a row. They've actually won 3 of their last 7 games, essentially. It's the fact that the Hurricanes have put themselves in a great spot when you're winning 5 of your last 7. Really can't go wrong there. So really good, run so far by the Hurricanes. Now, when you're looking at the players to watch overall, mostly the goaltending situation right now is that the Jackets are, like I said, 23-18-7 with a combined 329 goals against, an 885 save percentage, and 2 shutouts on the season. Elvis Merzlikins has kind of taken the yeoman's work for the Jackets, 17-11-3 with a 299 goals against and an 893 save percentage, while Daniel Tarasov, who did recently come back, 4-6-2 with a 364 and an 872 save percentage. Now, looking at the Jackets overall and just seeing where they're kind of sticking at right now, it's going to be very interesting when you look at see where they're at, and you kind of, for them, it's like they are trying to still fight for a wild card spot and try to get themselves into the top part of getting within striking distance of the top 3. I don't know if they're gonna get to the top 3, but it definitely be very interesting for sure. Like I said, with the goaltending situation, you didn't have Elvis Merzlikins go against the Maple Leafs on Wednesday night. So if that's the case, you're looking at Daniel Tarasov most likely being the goalie in the second half of a back-to-back, because I don't really think Columbus and Dean Evason wants to go with Merzlikins in back-to-back games, especially a team like Carolina who's on a 3-game winning streak. So it's probably going to be Tarasov, and if you're the Hurricanes, you really want to take advantage of the fact that you're facing a team who's on that second half of a back-to-back. Yes, they just beat Toronto 5-1, but they're putting in a goalie who's got a 364 goals against and an 872 save percentage. I said it against Buffalo. I've said it against the Jackets. This is one of those, said it against the Blackhawks, sorry. It's that for against the Jackets, this is also you can't lose this game, but, this is a team that has a better record, but you're going up against a goalie who you can really take advantage of with his save percentage in the 8.7s and over 3.5 goals against. Like I said, it's nothing against Tarasov, but when you have a goalie that you can probably take advantage of in terms of gameplay, this is where it's kind of at right now for the Hurricanes. You want to take advantage when you can. Now, we saw Pyotr Kochetkov play against the Dallas Stars in that second half of the back-to-back on Tuesday night. The team, you don't have a game on Wednesday. You have the Jackets, coming into town, pretty much Friday night or Wednesday night after they just played Toronto, so they're going to be tired, and you're sitting at home waiting for them. Now, would you put Pyotr Kochetkov against Columbus? Maybe, but honestly, since you do have Frederik Andersen back, who just won that first half against the Blackhawks, and now he's sitting at 4-1 with a 178 goals against and a 929 save percentage, most likely, I will not be shocked if it's Frederik Andersen going to be in the net for the Hurricanes. So you're probably going to see an Andersen-Tarasov probably matchup coming into this game, because if the Hurricanes are kind of going to do what they did last season, where they kind of switched Andersen and Kochetkov and just kind of split them, one starts this game, one starts the next game, and kind of just alternate as the rest of the season goes, I could see that being the thing. Would you want to go with a hot hand? Sure, but I think the fact that you've already played Pierre Kochetkov so much already this season, where he's already got 30 starts under his belt, and you really don't want to hit the 50 range, because you don't really see a lot of goalies getting 50 to 55 starts a season unless they're a bona fide number one like a Connor Hellebuck. That's possible, but when you're a team that's really strong as a tandem unit, like a lot of the other teams around the league is now, you don't want to hit that spot where you're playing a guy so much when you have a 1A, 1B goalie. So I would not be surprised if you see Frederik Andersen against the Blue Jackets on Thursday night to wrap up their regular season matchup with those guys. And you're most likely going to see Daniel Tarasov because you just played Elvis versus Lincoln the night before. Now, we know the tail of the tape. We know who's been hot the last 5 games and what the goaltending situation is going to be like. But what are the guys that we should be looking for, and what are the keys to the game for the Hurricanes to get their 4th win of the season? Well, we'll get into that here in a second on a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5, get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. Like I said in segment 1, we kind of went over the tail of the tape, look at the potential goalie situation, and how are these teams in their last 10 games. But who are the players to keep an eye on in this matchup? And the first one is kind of obvious. Kirill Marchenko, 51 points in 48 games, 33 assists on the season. He's actually sitting at a plus 28. Talk about an absolute insane run and insane season for this guy. Like I said, well over a point per game, averaging 18 minutes and 51 seconds of ice time, 136 shots. And that somehow is only second on the entire team, as Zach Werenski's got 181, which we'll talk about him in here in a little bit. But Marchenko is probably one of the most, right now, on fire forwards for the Columbus Blue Jackets, why they are 23-18-7 just by the season that he's having. While he has only 18 goals, that 33 helpers does help. And the fact you're on the ice with Voronkov, who's also a plus 15 at 32 points. You also have Sean Monahan, who's been out with injury, but still, though, 41 points in 41 games with a plus 17. Those three together have been on an absolutely insane run for the Jackets. I mean, you have some guys that are still plus 2, some evens, but a lot of minuses as well, with Cole Soldier being the worst at minus 14 with 23 points. But still, though, those three combined have been an absolute unit for the Jackets. So definitely have to keep in mind of Marchenko and Voronkov, and of course, whenever you get Monahan back. But those three together have been absolutely insane. Now, looking at the defense, I mean, this guy right now, I mean, I love Jacob Slavin, but you got to give props where it needs to be, especially for how this guy's season has been so far for the Jackets, because the question was, is he ever going to get healthy? And he is, and that's Zach Werenski. 52 points in 48 games, 37 assists. He's a plus 11, 181 shots, which leads the Jackets. Also, average ice time, 26 minutes and 46 seconds. I mean, this is where, like I said, I would love for Jacob Slavin to go into Norris, but unfortunately right now they're looking at it as a points-based trophy for the most part for defensemen. But when you look at Zach Werenski, the fact that he's staying healthy, plays really good defense, like I said, you're looking at a guy who's a plus 11, 52 points, so he has the offense, he's got the assist, all the shots, averaging almost 27 minutes a game. Like, he is basically the guy for the defense right now, because the next guy in terms of points is Provorov with 20. He's 32 points up on the next guy, and right now he currently leads the Jackets by 1 over Marchenko. So that Zach Werenski is a guy you really have to keep an eye on, because the fact that he can set up plays, play good defense, and just be that guy, he's definitely someone that the Hurricanes have to keep an eye on. And then the last one, I mean, while he only has 26 points on the season, Adam Fantilli just got a hat trick against the Maple Leafs. You're talking about a guy who scored 4 goals in his last 5 games, and 3 of them came in 1. He is definitely someone you want to keep an eye on to stop on the opportunities, because right now he's playing some lights out hockey, and that's just a guy you really need to shut down. Now, on the flip side, what are the Hurricanes taking into this game? And well, for me, it's pretty simple. Of 3 of these guys who have been really solid so far for the Canes in the last 5 games. You're looking at Martin Necas, who's had 6 points in the last 5 games. You're talking 5 assists, 1 goal, 53 points in 48 games, really putting himself above the points per game mark once again. 18 minutes and 7 seconds on ice. I mean, what more can you say about this guy, for the fact that, yes, he might have cooled off in the goal scoring, but he's still one back of Jack Roslovic, leads the team in assists, leads the team in points. It's one of those things where, yeah, maybe he's not, like I said, not scoring on the clip that he was going on, but the fact that you're talking 5 assists in the last 5 games, you'll gladly take that if you're the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, while Necas is getting a lot of the assists, how about Seth Jarvis just on an absolute tear right now? Just a run where you're seeing 2 goals against Vegas, a goal against Dallas. Like, what more can you really say about Seth Jarvis and the run that he's been absolutely on right now for the Carolina Hurricanes? And in that, you're talking 4 goals in the last 5. The goal against Anaheim, a goal against Chicago, and then 2 against Vegas. I mean, not the Dallas game, but the Chicago game. I mean, still though, that's a lot of points in the last 5, and that's even with him missing time too. The fact that he's sitting at 34 and 41, over 19 minutes of ice time. Jarvis and Necas right now are probably one of the guys with the hottest runs right now in terms of the games. And another guy, I mean, look at Jesperi Kotkaniemi. Even with all the trade talks going on, he's 3 goals in the last 2 games for him. Puts him at 9 on the season, 22 points. I mean, yes, he's kind of a streaky player right now, but you will gladly take that when the team is, you're on a second half of a back-to-back. He's the only one that scored both of your goals against the Dallas Stars and was able to help you carry in that win. Scored against Chicago. It's, will he keep the run going? I don't know, but you have to appreciate when a guy is on a run like that, to where he's able to do what he can do to help the team, get the wins and keep the winning streak going. So I would say if you're looking for another guy that maybe isn't always there in terms of scoring goals for you, I would still take a look at Jesperi Kotkaniemi as someone that, hey, if he's on a hot run right now, maybe that's the confidence he needed to go where he's at. So you'd love to see him from where he's at right now. And, definitely some guys you need to keep an eye on. I mean, always. I mean, you're talking about, if you want to talk about the defense, Shane Gostisbehere, hopefully, that's getting the play, getting the power play going and stuff like that. So it'll definitely be interesting. Now, what are the 3 keys to the game for the Carolina Hurricanes if they want to continue their winning streak and put that towards 4? Well, for me, it's like you've got to take advantage of the power play. Yes, you're 17th, but you're playing the 26th ranked penalty kill. And you're also playing a team that it gives up the same amount of goals as they usually score and that you even score. And that's 26th in the league. Basically, take advantage of the penalty kill. While their power play is 10th in the NHL right now, the penalty kill is probably one of their weakest points. Yes, you haven't really scored a lot on the power play, but I still think you can find a way to take advantage of that for sure. And if you go on 5-on-5, like I said, they're 26 in goals given up. You can make a run to where if you put up enough goals on these guys, you can probably run away with this. And you're a team that pretty much shuts them down, or, shuts a lot of teams down because you're 6th, even though Columbus has put up, the same amount of goals as you have per game. But if you find a way to take advantage of the faceoffs where you're 4th and they're 28th, that's a lot of time of possession for you in their zone. And you can take, advantage of being able to force your game onto the other team and put them on their back foot. And I mean, they're on a second half of a back-to-back. You could easily go into this game and take advantage of them being tired. You got some rest. And it's a team that's okay on the 5-on-5. And you could take advantage of the power play too when you get the opportunity. It's just, you have to do that. And like I said, this is not a must win, but it's also a can't lose because you're talking another Metro team. So like I always talked about in the tiers of where the points sit. It's always division, conference, and then the league. And right now, you are looking at division points on the line because if you beat them, you still have a game ahead of New Jersey. You're farther ahead. You're still staying ahead of them because they won against Boston. So they're 1 point back. If you win this game against Columbus, you'll still have that game in hand, but you're back 3 points ahead. And then you further distance yourself from Columbus, who's trying to fight for a top 3 spot in the Metro, who was in a wild card fight. So this is your opportunity to get that done. So basically, it's just take advantage of the special teams, take advantage on the fact that this team gives up a lot of goals. And if if you play the game like you did against Dallas, like you could put yourself in a good spot where you get your 4th win in a row. You're back to 3 points above New Jersey, and now you're distancing yourself from the Blue Jackets and the wild card race. So that's definitely something that needs to happen for the Hurricanes. Now, with all that being said of, looking at the preview, what are the keys to the game, players to watch, now we could turn to the trade rumors with the Canucks and the Carolina Hurricanes with Matthew Zator of the Hockey Writers. So stick around as we'll get into that conversation with him here in a second on a Thursday edition of Locked on Hurricanes. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. One of my favorite memories was attending a game last year. The energy and the excitement were unforgettable. Now, Gametime has made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite events with their new feature, Gametime Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONAHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Well, it's game time. All right, guys, I am very excited to have this man on the podcast for the first time. He's over with me at the Hockey Writers, but he's the Vancouver Canucks beat writer. Super happy this guy on. Always great time talking hockey with him on all other types of platforms we got over there, the Hockey Writers, in terms of their podcast, but it's his first time here at Locked on Hurricanes. I am super excited to have Matthew Zator on the pod. Matt, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. It's been interesting in Canucks world lately. And that's probably an understatement. It's been a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, to say the least, with rumors of JT Miller straight up from Mika Zibanejad to the Rangers. And now everyone's ramping up on the Hurricanes being in some trade talks, whether it's, Martin Necas for Pettersson, or now it's JT Miller to the Hurricanes, but who's going to be involved? And I've seen some wild people come up with some of these trades where it's it's JT Miller for Necas, Nikishin, Morrow draft picks. I'm all right, pump the brakes. That is such an that's armchair GM's armchair GM just a little bit more. But I know I tweeted out something yesterday which I didn't really think this was going to blow up as much as it did. It was from Corey from the Athletic. He does a lot of the prospect stuff, and he was like, well, here's what top prospects teams could give up to get JT Miller. And for the Hurricanes, it was Nikita Arnamonov, but you also added just Barrett Kilkaniemi, a 2025 first and a 2026 second. And I'm all right, here's a potential trade. What do you guys think? And now it's 200,000 views, 200 comments. I'm well, this thing definitely blew up. And I've seen takes from do it to not do it. It's an overpay. He's on the other side of 30 with 5 more years at $8 million and stuff like that. So I want to get your thoughts, before we jump into the Canucks type of stuff. What's it been like for you, though, having just to see all this speculation through the first half of the season of where, maybe it's not the start you guys wanted, but now it seems for the last, month and a half, it's just been nothing but Pettersson and Miller, how they don't like each other, but they're saying they do. But the Canucks might want to move one of them. What's that been like, just having to deal with all of that mix of emotions and just stuff that's, all going back and forth with this whole saga?
It's been really especially compared to last season where there was no drama, zero.
Right, which is crazy.
Just everything was going right. Canucks were winning. They were top of the division. Most of the season, they were near the top of the league.
Right.
All the stats favored them. I mean, there was just nothing to really complain about. And now they got off to that. I mean, it's not been a horrible start,
Right.
but it's just not been to their standard, especially how they played last season. And then, of course, you throw in JT Miller's leave of absence, and then the rumors after that saying, why did he have the leave of absence? And then now the thing with Pettersson that apparently has gone back to Travis Green's days, which was like a bunch of seasons ago.
Right.
And even Bruce Boudreau's commented on it. It's just been so much that, they both denied it, like you said, but there's just too much noise for it to be not true. So, I mean, there is something there. And now that there's talk about trading Miller, trading Pettersson, and Pettersson with his big contract not performing to that level,
Right.
It's just both guys are just nowhere near their point production from last season. Miller is on pace for his worst season in a Canucks uniform. Same thing with Pettersson. He's on for his worst season as a Canuck since he started in the NHL, which was his rookie season. It's even worse than that. So, I mean, it's been a lot of mixed emotions, like you said.
Yeah.
It's always tough to have to trade a top player like these two guys, which, they signed long-term contracts. These guys are supposed to be here long-term. Part of the core. And just, Alvin coming out and saying he believes in the core. Mm-hmm. My question is, what in his mind is the core? So it's, now he's they're talking about trading either of them. Apparently one of them isn't part of the core.
Yeah, it's crazy because you're talking about Miller with like 5 more years left on his deal. Pettersson just signed his, so his is like, and that's like what, $11.5 million or somewhere close to it. And that is such a long contract too. Like, you're looking at those guys going well into their 30s. And I'll even say this too. We even talked about, like, also, you guys haven't had Thatcher Demko for most of the season. He just came back, and I mean, if it wasn't for Kevin Lincoln and having an absolute hot run that he was on, where would you guys be at now with, Archer Seeloss? Mm-hmm. Everyone thought he was going to be the guy to come out after the playoff run that he had with you guys last year. So, yeah, it's definitely a mixed bag of, like, okay, well, you don't have Demko. Sivos is kind of, not really where he was last year, but luckily you got Lincoln. But now it's all the drama of, between these two guys. Now they're on their worst runs. And it's like, what kind of deal are the Canucks looking at? Because they have to know every team is going to be like, we're not going to give you like our best guys. We're not going to give you the hauls that you think you're going to get. And two, it's like, they're acting like they don't want to retain. I'm sorry, but you're going to have to retain somewhere if teams aren't going to give you the necessary cap to compensate 8, let alone 11.5 for a guy like Pettersson. Like, how do you navigate that if you're the Canucks of, you're on the wrong side of a trade where no one's going to go to your ask, but also stay firm on, we don't want any of this money?
Well, see, the problem is that the drama between the two, it's true. The Canucks are dealing from a position of weakness. Everyone knows about it. Every team, every fan, it seems, knows about this problem that they've had in the dressing room. And, there's been talk about Miller. They're trying to find out, is he a cancer in the dressing room? I mean, do you want to bring in a guy like this to your dressing room? Is he going to be a problem? I mean, that's a legitimate concern. And Pettersson, he hasn't, you're paying a guy 11.6.
11.6, yeah.
11.6 million for what, 60 points? Like, that's not what you want. You want a guy going to his 100-point Pettersson. You want the 100-point guy to be paid that much. When you're looking at where he is in the structure of pay throughout the NHL, he's in the top 5. Is he performing as a top 5 player in the league when you're looking at the other guys who are getting paid around that? Not even close. So, you're talking about retention. I'm sorry, it's true. The Canucks going to have to retain if, to kind of show other teams that are like, you don't have to pay this full 11.6 or whatever. Right. Miller at 8.5, I believe it is.
Right.
So, Miller,
of course, a lot of money,
is less. I mean, he's got less term. He's older, like you said, too. It's tough. I mean, you're going to have to retain some money. And
Right.
Canucks have done that way too much, in my opinion. I mean, not retaining, but buyouts. They've got this dead cap already. Do you want to add even more? I get the hesitancy that they don't want to do that, but I'm not sure any team is going to take full contracts.
Yeah, no, that's what I think that's the one thing, because you see a lot of people going like, oh, well, the Canucks will have to retain, or, just start giving up like 2 or 3 roster guys. And it's like, do you really want to give up 2 or 3 roster guys, prospects, and draft picks for, like you said, guys who are on their worst runs of their careers right now? That's a tough sell. And like you said, if guys like Miller is a cancer, and the Carolina Hurricanes are a team that are all about you fitting into the room and, pulling your same amount of weight and being, a culture guy. And they look at, can this guy be a good character fit for our team? And if Miller is that cancer that everyone's saying that he could be, I don't really see that being a thing. And of course, the Hurricanes too, they are a team that's driven on analytics and making sure, hey, what's our value for this guy at this certain contract, at this certain age? Because they didn't give Vincent Trocheck his 7x7. They didn't give Brady Shea his 7x7. They didn't even give Brett Pesce his, I think it was like $5.5 million that he wanted either. So you're looking like they brought in Walker and Gostisbehere in the extended Chatfield, all under from what those two combined made with Nashville and New Jersey. So I don't really see them being like, oh yeah, we'll just take $11.5 million or 11.6 of Pedersen or the full 8 of Miller, and we have him until he's like 36. Like that's a lot of, like, they're not a Jacob Slavin where you give a guy 6.4 for the next 8 years where he is in his mid-30s, but where he is. Like you said, that's a tough sell. And for me, I really like this certain player from the Canucks. I know they're not going to give this guy up. He's 28. I really like Brock Besser.
Yeah.
I could see where a trade might work to get him, because he's only making, I think it was like 6.5 or 6.6. He is going to be an unrestricted free agent. So, you're going to have to, find a way to hopefully give him an extension. But I think you could give him one for like 7.5, maybe $8 million for the next 6-7 years. Like, do you think the Canucks would even be in the realm of giving him up? Or is it like, no, it's Miller or Pedersen and that's it?
The one thing about Brock Besser is if this stuff wasn't going on with Miller and Pedersen, he'd be the one in the rumors everywhere, because there hasn't been really any talk about an extension at this point.
Right.
And he's a guy that's, he had a bit of criticism from Alvin in the offseason, where he said he kind of slowed down after he scored his 40th goal, that he was really, he could have scored 50 in his opinion. And it was maybe kind of a shot at him. He didn't stay at that same intensity all season. He's on pace. I believe he's still on pace for 30 goals. He hasn't scored in a while, but there's a guy that he definitely would be worth something on the trade market. And he's come out and said he knows he's the easy choice to trade because he's a UFA. But he believes he's part of this future in Vancouver. Does Alvin and Rutherford believe he is another story. They've talked about kind of, we'll see how it goes, all the generic stuff that GMs say with their players that are coming up. But seems like they're more involved in this Miller Pedersen thing, that Besser could still end up being traded though, because the way the Canucks are going, they don't start turning things around. They're going to be outside the playoff picture around the trade deadline. And you trade a guy like Besser then, because you don't want to get into a situation where you get to July 1st, you can't re-sign him, and then you lose them for nothing, just like they lost Lindholm, Zadorov. Obviously, they weren't going to trade those guys at the deadline because they were way in the playoffs. They were Stanley Cup contenders.
Yeah.
At this point, they're not even close to that. I don't even think a move is a Miller trade going to change that? I don't think so, because you're not getting a guy that's going to replace him.
No.
Canucks fans, you're not going to get him.
Yeah.
I think Besser is definitely a guy that could be dealt. It's kind of under the radar because of all the other noise that's going around.
Yeah.
But I still think that's a guy that could be on the block, especially if the Canucks are, out of the playoff race there.
Yeah. Yeah, because I know with the Hurricanes fans are always talking about, they want a second line center. Kotkaniemi's not really there yet. Neither is Jack Drury, but if they get Miller, that's a second line. some people said, what about Pedersen? And then there's all the people saying, oh, well, he's a soft Euro. He's not like, we don't need more of those guys. He's not physical because he also wanted a physical center. So they're like, oh, well, JT Miller's feisty. He's got body. He's got some bite to him. But like you said, is he going to be a problem for the locker room? Do you want to take on that contract for another 5 seasons with no retention and him possibly being a locker room cancer with the leadership group that has, Jordan Stahl, Martin, Slavin, and Aho? That's going to be the thing too. And that's why I'm saying, well, if we're not getting a 2C from Vancouver, you can go get a 2C from somewhere else if you really need one. And that's why I'm like, well, go get Besser. Like you could possibly extend him to a decent contract, give him the money that he wants, but you're putting him in a spot where you're in a market where he's going to be really valued, and you're going to put him in the top 6 where I think he can really thrive. And he still adds a physical body to the game that the Hurricanes need, especially in the playoffs. But I don't know. It's definitely interesting where it's like it's always clamoring for a 2C, but I'm like, but there's a winger though. There's a winger though that he could be there and do something in the top 6. Like, you can go. It's like you would love to get a second line center, but if you can get a top 6 scoring forward that could easily go on your first line with like a Jarvis Aho with Besser, that's not really a bad top line to have.
No, and the thing is that the risk, I think, is way less with a guy, trading. I mean, yes, you could lose him, and it's just him be just a rental. But I mean,
that's what they did with Jake Gensel last year.
Yeah, so. He went down that road already. I mean, unfortunately, couldn't re-sign him. But Besser could end up being that for any team because it sounds like, although I mean, there's been all this stuff with Canucks saying, oh, he could be in, send him off, he comes back. It's not that hasn't happened a lot.
It's very rare you see a guy get traded and then come back. Usually it's like, no, he pretty much gets the extension from that team. Or, it's one of those things, like you said, with Gensel, where it's, hey, they got him. They tried to get him, but, they wanted that, no state salary thing in Florida, and they got that extra $1 million instead of that one extra year. So, unfortunate circumstances, but.
I think with Besser is like, if he does go to free agency, I could see him just signing in Minnesota because he's from there, his family. But I mean, I really think Besser is probably, I want to say he's going to resign in Vancouver, but the way the team is, it depends on if, like I say, what Alvin thinks is the core of this team. Is Besser part of that core too? I don't know.
Because right now it's like you could be Pedersen without the core. Miller is not part of the core, but like you said, Besser. Right now it seems like it's Quinn Hughes and Demko. It's Hughes and Demko, and that's pretty much it right now. That's kind of like your core at this point, or maybe a Jake DeBrusk. That's kind of really.
I mean, he's signed long term, so yes, you got to say he is.
Yeah, so I mean, you got me. Okay, there's your 3. It's like 2. It's like a forward, a defenseman, and your goaltender, and it's not the 3 guys you would think of as like your remaining core. But so before I let you go, Matt, so like this is my last question for you. If one of these guys do get traded, who do you think is going to be that guy, and who do you think is like the biggest probably candidate to get one of those guys? And you don't have to say Carolina because we're on a Hurricanes podcast, but you can any team that you can think of, which guy does go, and who do you think it might be?
At this
I'm not going to ask retention because I'm not going to ask for return because no one knows what the return is on all these offers. But.
It's tough with what they're going to get, but I'm going with JT Miller because it just seems inevitable at this point. There's a bit of, again, the rumors are, the latest rumor at least is, LeBron is saying that it could not happen till the offseason. I mean, it might not, it might drag on to that. Who knows? Right. It's not like the Canucks have to really force it. Although if this thing is real in the dressing room, do you want to keep Miller around a long time? Maybe not. But, whenever it happens, I think it is going to be JT Miller. It's going to be traded. Even though I really like him as a player, I think he adds a lot to the Canucks lineup when he's at his best. When he's not at his best, it's another story. But and that's going to be wherever he goes. That's just how he is, this type of player he is. So, but it just feels like he's the guy that's getting traded, and Pedersen is staying. And I think that's the right choice. Pedersen's way younger. He's got a lot more potential. And I think the Canucks will regret it if they do trade him, because I don't think they're getting full value for him either.
No, and
he should be worth a lot to trade. So Miller traded. The team is a little interesting to me. I can see where all these targets are. I can see him going anywhere to there.
Right.
The Rangers seems like the more obvious one, but right now it just seems like Rangers don't want to give up what the Canucks want. And they want guys like Lafreniere. They want guys like Braden Schneider. And I'd be ecstatic to get either of those guys, because I feel like Lafreniere has a ton more, to give too. And Schneider's he's always one of my favorite prospects before he became an NHLer. So I feel like the Rangers is probably the place they'll go. But as an outside chance, I think the Hurricanes is definitely a spot too, because I think they would take him on, even though he, that issues dressing room. I think they've got a strong enough leadership group that would maybe, I don't want to say stifle, but manage it.
Like temper it down a little bit, maybe kind of like try to kind of smooth the edges off a little.
Which I believe why there wasn't an issue before is because of the voices they had in the room before. With Ian Cole, Luke Shen, they don't have those guys now. So maybe those were the guys that kind of kept an even keel with Miller. So I think if he gets into a dressing room that has strong leadership, the Hurricanes do, same with the head coach, Rod Brind'Amour is like,
it's Rod Brind'Amour.
It probably would be fine in Carolina.
It's a good possibility. Like you said, when you look at Stahl, Martinook, Slavin, even Aho, and like you said, with Rod Brind'Amour, don't forget Tim Gleason's also the assistant coach as well. He doesn't really take anyone's nonsense either. So I could see it to where it's a possibility that maybe the Hurricanes coaches and their leadership core could make it work with Miller. I wouldn't mind him because he is from Ohio, from East Palestine. I'm also from Ohio as well, so it wouldn't be bad to have an Ohio guy on the team, but he does bring, a good, scoring physicality as well. I had a 100-point season last year. Is he on a bad pace right now? Yeah, but anything can happen, and there's your legitimate 2 seed that you're asking for. You got him locked up for another 5 years after this, and see where it goes from there. So it definitely will be very interesting. But Matt, thank you so much. I had a lot of fun talking to you, man. It's always good, talking hockey with you. I appreciate you taking the time and jumping on with me tonight. Just with all these rumors kind of circulating, I'm like, you know what? I can't wait on this. We just need to get it done and over with. I need to get it from the source itself. So I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for jumping on with me tonight.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking, and love to come on again if Miller does get traded to Carolina.
I'll definitely keep that in mind and be like, all right, I need to call Matt again if this trade does happen. But before I actually let you go, where can people find you on the socials, and where can they check out your writing?
Of course, I'm on thehockeywriters.com. Write about the Canucks, prospects, the draft, all that over there. And we also host Prospect Corner with Peter Baracchini and Dayton Reimer. We talk prospects every week, so check that out. And then you can follow me on X, Matthew Zator SC, and on Blue Sky, same handle there too. So check me out there.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, make sure to give him a follow and go check out his writing. It is really great stuff. Very awesome for Matt to join me on it and just be able to talk Canucks and Canes and just all the rumors that are going on with that. So, make sure to definitely give him a follow. He's a really great guy just to keep everything eye on in terms of hockey writer stuff, prospects, Vancouver Canucks, what have you. He is the guy for all of that. But that will wrap up a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Thank you for making the first listen of the day. For your second listen, well, why don't you check out Locked On Fantasy Hockey? Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to keep up with me, I'm at OneTrueZach on X. The podcast is LO_Hurricanes. I'm also on Blue Sky at the Zachary Martin. I do have link trees in both my bios where you can find all of my articles at the Hockey Writers, or just go to thehockeywriters.com. I'm also, like I said, with the Calder Times once again, so that's thecaldertimes.com. And check out all my articles. I do have a link tree to my author page there too about the Charlotte Checkers. If you want to check out my other podcasts, well, it's the Search Cast on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. For this show, well, Locked On Hurricanes on Spotify, Google, Apple, iHeartRadio, it's all there. Follow, subscribe, leave a 5-star rating and review so that way I can read it on the show. on YouTube, Locked on Hurricanes. Subscribe, hit the bell notification so you don't miss the show. Leave a thumbs up to let me know if you like the show as well. Share with all other Canucks to become everydayers just like you. Hope everyone enjoyed the Thursday edition of Locked on Hurricanes. Hope everyone enjoys their Thursday and also enjoy watching the Carolina Hurricanes play the Columbus Blue Jackets tonight. And as always, let's go Canes.